Okay, so here's what you need to know if you need to know the essentials about context on An Inspector Calls. What's going on around the play, why it was written, what's happening in the world at the time. So, first off, the play is set in 1912, which is what we would call the Edwardian era of the UK. Now, with this, it's a time of prosperity for a lot of people, a lot of business people in particular doing very well, large kind of industrial expansion during the Victorian era, which is the era just before sort of 1912. And there's loads of people who have made a lot of money out of it and done very well. And the Burlings are a family who represent that. Okay. Now, the younger Burlings are about the same age as the writer of the play, J.B. Priestley. He was born in 1894. So he's kind of in his late teens when we get to sort of 1912. So when you're looking at Eric and Sheila, they're about the age of J.B. Priestley, and they sort of represent his kind of generation, right? We'll come back to that in a minute. Now, it was an era of prosperity for some people, but it was built, as a lot of people see it, on the backs of a lot of other people. So a lot of poor people, a lot of people in the UK at the time, and a lot of people around the world who were feeding into the prosperity of a few people at the top of society. And we had a very rigid class structure in 1912. Okay, so we've got rich people at the top making a lot of money, poor people not doing very well, and a lot of poverty going on. Right. Now, in between 1912 and when the play is first put on in 1946 and being written by J.B. Priestley in 1945, we have the two World Wars. World War I in 1914 to 1918 and World War II in 1939 to 1945. J.B. Priestley fought in World War I, and it had a massive kind of impact on him, and it had a massive impact on all sorts of different things in society in Europe, and particularly in the UK. It upended the class system in lots of different ways. People looked at how rigid it was and what was going on, and they wanted to do things in lots of different ways. There were lots of different political philosophies sort of flying around, and socialism was one of them. Now, J.B. Priestley was raised as a socialist, right? His parents were socialist, and he had a lot of kind of socialist ideas, and his experiences in World War I in particular pushed him in that direction. He had a lot of experiences as a private soldier looking at the kind of rich officer class and not feeling particularly good about them or liking them particularly much. And it kind of shifted him even further towards what we'd call left-wing politics, right? So getting rid of this class structure and getting rid of those people who are making lots of money and redistributing some of that money to a lot of the poor people who are living in poverty. And he really wanted to push for that towards the end of the Second World War, right? He did a lot of political kind of radio broadcasts during the Second World War, where he was kind of pushing that sort of way. And at the end of the Second World War, he even started a political party called the Commonwealth Party, right? So redistributing the wealth among common people, right? And that's what he was pushing for in 1945 and the late 1940s. And it's one of the reasons why he wrote the play. Now, you can see in the play, right, how that context affects it. So the younger generation, your Eric and your Sheila, are people who are shifting their political views and thinking we should look after people more, right? And the inspector sort of represents J.B. Priestley coming in and telling this rich family, you need to change your ways, because otherwise, if you don't do it, there's going to be some sort of revolution and people are going to take control anyway.